Thank you everyone for joining us for another session of our Tuesday night class. This beautiful Seudah from Mrs. Bekabza is in memory of Yaakov ben Malka, and the Neshama should have an Ilui, the Ayla ul Ayla, all the way up to the Kisei HaKavod, and we should only see Simcha and Torah in this home. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, this shiur we're going to be talking about Halachot Purim, right? Mishenichnas Adar Marbim B'Simcha, as we can see. Do you see their faces? But before that, we're going to be talking about something very important. There's two reasons why we give Mishloach Manot. One is that people should have food for Seudat Purim. They need to have food, so you give one to the next person. Another reason why is in order to bring about love and caring from one Jew to the next. From our brethren, from our sisters, you give to the next person, you bring about love, you show that you care about the next person, and that's what the mitzvah is. We're going to see later on in Halachot, there's a very big difference. Because they ask a question, are you allowed to give shoes? Right? You have shoes with the red bottoms. What are those shoes? Louboutin shoes. And you want to give it to someone, right? That's much better than the little grape juice with the Mike and Ike's. But you don't get the mitzvah. Why? Because you need to have the two things, either something food or something happy. So that makes you happy, that brings about love, but it doesn't have the food aspect involved. Now, I want to speak a little bit about what it means to care about others. The Gemara in Shabbat brings down that when a person, can you hear me back there?
Yes.
When a person passes away, God is going to ask him 6 questions. Right when he comes up to Bet Din, or she, to Bet Din Shel Ma'ala, God's going to ask him 6 things. Number 1, Nasata v'natata b'emunah. Were you honest in business? Were you truthful, or did you cheat people? Right? There's a whole, not for this class, but there's a whole reason why we actually ask that as the first thing. Why is the first thing about business as opposed to Torah or everything else? That we'll talk about at different times. The next thing is, Kavata itim la Torah. Did you always make time to learn Torah? Now for women, this doesn't apply so much, but it applies for the woman pushing her husband out to learn, or her kids. All these different ways that the man can go learn is from the woman, and God's going to ask, did you make him go learn? Kavata itim la Torah. Asakta pirya v'rivya. The third question is, did you bring life into this world? This world is meant to live in, to settle, to bring people in. Did you have children? Tzipita liyeshua. Did you wait for Mashiach? Did you wait for, right? A lot of people, they think, you know what? I paid my mortgage on time. I like the schools. What do I need Mashiach for? I'm happy now. A couple of years, right? It's only for the people who have hard times, who fall on bitter problems that happen to them. But for everyone else, it's okay. So God is saying, no, you should always wait for Mashiach. Tzipita liyeshua. That's the fourth question. Pilpalta b'chokhmah. He says, and even without all these, even if you get a check for all of these, you still need to have fear of heaven. God's going to ask, did you fear me? Did you do what I say you should do? And if you answer correct, you're good. If not, then there's going to be issues. Now, Rav Zusha said there's one more question that you're going to be asked. Rav Zusha says that they say about him, when he was on his deathbed, he was crying, and they said, Rabbi, what are you crying about? He said, I'm crying because I know all these answers. I'm gonna have a check one. All these I'm good with, but I'm gonna be asked one more question. I'm not gonna be asked if I'm gonna be like Moshe Rabbeinu. A woman's not gonna be asked, well, why weren't you like Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Esther HaMalka? You're gonna be asked, why weren't you? Why was I not Zusha? Why was I not David Elbaz? Why didn't I fulfill the potential that I was supposed to fulfill? Right? That's what God's going to ask you. Did you figure out? Did you accomplish what you needed to accomplish? Right? People have leadership qualities. Were you a leader? People have the ability to change a community. Were you that person at the forefront, taking the bull by its horns and changing the community, or did you just stay on the sidelines, wait for someone else? And God's going to ask you, did you do that? Did you give the world what you were able to give? Did you help everyone that you can help? And if you answer in the affirmative, wonderful. If not, he's saying then you're going to have problems. There's going to be issues because God said, I put you on this world for a reason, and now you're not doing it. Did you help out every Jew in need when you saw a person that needed help? Rabbi Pesach Krohn says a story. He said there's a certain couple that walked into an Avelut house, a Shiva. They went to pay a Shiva call. And right away, the people at the Shiva, they knew that they didn't know the deceased. They stayed for a couple of minutes, asked a few questions. When they left, someone comes over to them and says, "Did you know the person who passed away?" They said, "No." So they said, "Why are you here?" So the couple said that we have the misaskim list, which is the list of whoever passes away. And whoever comes from a different country or doesn't have many people sitting Shiva, we go and we're there for them. Because we know that that's what these people need. We care about these people and we want to show that we also feel your pain. So we go to every Shiva that we see people aren't there or maybe that wouldn't be there. That's caring for another Jew. Going out of your way to help someone even though you don't have to. You don't know the person that's deceased, but they see that someone's coming and they feel good about it. And that's what they're there for. The Gemara in Shabbat, Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph on the top says that two people had a bet. They bet, there was a big rabbi, his name was Hillel. They bet, one says, I bet you money that you can't make him angry. And he says, no, I'll take that wager and I'm going to be able to make him angry. Hillel. And the Gemara says, what did he do? He said he walked around Hillel's house at the time when he was showering, and he says, I have a question. And he's screaming, Mikan Hillel, where is Hillel? Where is this person Hillel? Where is Hillel? And Hillel goes, he puts on his robe, he comes out, and he says, what do you need, son? He said, well, I have a question for you. And he asks, ask my son, ask. He said, he says, why are the Babylonian heads so round? He says, you're asking a really good question. Why? Okay, he answered. Then again, he asked him another question. After he goes back into the shower, he comes back outside. He says, where's Hillel? He comes out again and he asks him a different question. He says, why are the people from this place, why are their eyes so look different? And he says the reason why. He went back in the shower and he said, where's Hillel? Right? He's trying to get him angry. And he comes back down and he says, why are these people's feet the way they are? And he answers it. And then he says, why don't you just ask me all your questions now? So he said, the truth is, Hillel, you made me lose a lot of money just now. He said, why? He said, I had a wager. I had a bet. If I can get you angry and I see I lost. Are you Hillel that they call the leader of the Jews? He said, yes. If this is true, there should be not like many like you in this world. He said, why do you say such a thing? He said, because you made me lose money. So what does Hillel say? He said, it's worth it that I wouldn't be angry. It's worth it not to hurt another Jew's feelings. It's worth it to care for a person, even though he could go and bother me and make me get redressed 3-4 times. But you know what? It's worth it not to hurt you, because I care for another Jew. And that's the end of that story. Now, Rabbi Shapiro brings down a different story of a 10-year-old boy who had PTA. There was PTA, like we all know, in the school. And he tells his parents, he says, Dad, Mom, I want to let you know that I did something cute for you today. I put a note on my desk for you to read. But I only addressed it to Daddy, not to Mommy. He says, and I want to tell you why. He said, of course I meant you also. It was for both of you, saying how much I love you, saying how much you mean to me. And I want to let you know, Mama, it was also for you, but I didn't write your name. Why? Because the person sitting right near me just lost his mother 6 months ago. And I didn't want that person to see this note and feel bad. Or the father to feel bad. So I made sure just to write to Dad, but it was for you also. Now, where does a person get such caring? Rabbi Shapiro says because he knows the parents. And the parents instilled it in the child to care for another Jew. But this is another amazing story to see how much a person can care for another Jew, to go to the extent, and not to write the person's name, to think about someone in such a way is amazing. And if you have a certain caring like this for another person, you can bring him from the darkest place to the lightest place. Rav David Shrink, who recently passed away, He's the Rosh Yeshiva of Adelphia Yeshiva. One day, it was Shabbat, and he finds out that one of his students, steals his own car on Shabbat and goes to the movie theater. So what does Rabbi Trank do? What would a normal person do? He would write him off right away. The guy's a mashugana, he's a majnun, he's crazy. I can't believe he would do something like that. Steal a car on Shabbat, go to a movie? I'm done with him. He's a lost cause, he's hopeless. What does Rabbi Trank do? He starts walking. And from Adelphia to the movie theater was very far, and he walked and he walked and he walked until he finally made it there. He goes to the ticket booth and he tells the person, the truth is, I don't have money, I can't pay for it, but one of my students is inside, I just want to tell him one thing and I'm going to come right back out. The ticket booth person says, no problem, go in. He finds the boy, he sits right near him, and he says, I want to let you know that you shouldn't eat the popcorn, it's not kosher. And he gets up to leave. The boy grabs him and starts to cry. He says, Rebbe, I'm coming with you. And they both walk out. They walk back to yeshiva together. And he says, I swear I'm never going to be mechalel Shabbat again. Right? A normal person would say, this guy's crazy. I'm not going to deal with him. But he had so much care and love for another Jew, for a student, like his own son. He said, I can't do that. And the boy felt it. He knew it. And that's why he was able to come back in such a way. When I drove Rav Shmuel Kamenetsky to Philadelphia, before I came to Florida, before I moved there almost 2 years ago, I drive him to Florida and I asked him a question. He's one of the Gedolim, and I said, I'm moving to Florida. What is the most important thing I should deal with when I come here? Should it be Taharat HaMishpacha? Should it be Shabbat? What should I do? Should it be Chinuch? He says, I have one answer for you. He said, just show them that you care. He says, when they see you care, that's all that matters. Everything else will come. When you care about another Jew, you can tell them about Taharat Mishpacha, Shabbat, Kashrut. They're going to do everything because they know that you're the type of person that just wants the best for them. Binyamin meets Yosef in the parasha. And Binyamin tells Yosef about his kids. And he names them, Bela, Becher, Ashbel, Gera. He starts naming all of his kids. And Yosef HaTzadik says, why did you name them such names? He says, well, Bela means to swallow. It talks about my brother Yosef who disappeared. And he went through all the names, how every one of the names was talking about Yosef, his brother. He says, Becher. Why was he Becher? It's in reference to Yosef being the first child of my mother Rachel. And Yosef couldn't contain himself and he had to walk out and start to cry. Why? Because he said, someone cares about me. Someone who would go and name all his kids about me, he cares about me. He couldn't hold it in anymore. He couldn't just sit there and listen to someone saying all these beautiful things about him. But that's what it does when you care about another person. When you give the mishloach manot, when you give it with a real ahava, it brings about a certain caring and love between brothers that we don't have, that unifies us. The right side of the luchot has all the things ben adam lemakon, everything that you have to do for God. You have to keep Shabbat. On the left side is everything ben adam lechavero, what you have to do for people. Hashem made sure that everything ben adam lechavero, everything you have to do for your friend, was written in a bigger font. And the Mabit says, what's the reason? Because you might think that everything you have to do with Hashem is much more important. That's why it's written like that. So we're putting these words much bigger to show that everything you do for your fellow brother, your sister, is so important that I'm going to make it bigger. I'm going to make the luchot look bigger just for this. Just ben adam lechavero. And that's the reason why, by a man, when we go into a cemetery, we have to tuck in our tzitzit. You can't wear tzitzit out in a cemetery. Why? Because you're mal'ig l'rash. You're showing all the deceased that you could do mitzvot and they can't, and it makes them feel bad. The same reason why we cover the bread. Why do we cover the challah on Shabbat? It's because it's embarrassing for the bread. Because really, you're allowed to make kiddush on the bread, but you're making it on the wine. You're embarrassing the bread. We go out of our way to show care for the other items, whether they're not tangible, they are tangible. People, food, it doesn't make a difference. It's showing how much we care. Now, who do we see? Who is the quintessential person that we see this by most? This is Moshe Rabbeinu. God comes to Moshe Rabbeinu and God says, Moshe, I want you to lead the Jewish people. I want you to take them out of Egypt. And what does Moshe do? He could have said, you know what? I'm going to be the hero. I'm going to do it. He's so happy. He's excited. Instead, he says, I have an older brother. His name is Aharon. He should be doing it, not me. God says, don't worry about Aharon. He's perfect. He's not going to feel slighted one bit. I want you to do it. That was Moshe Rabbeinu thinking about the next person. We see this also by spirituality. Avraham Avinu, he went out of his way, Abraham, to go and bring back everyone to Torah. All the people in the world who didn't know about God, they were worshiping other gods. He was the first monotheist, and he said, I'm going to make sure that people know God. He cared about humankind entirely. And the most we see this by God himself. Now this is for a whole different class to understand how this works. But there's a reason why God created us. God doesn't need people. He doesn't need us. Right? We're finite. He's infinite. We're here on this world for whatever reason it is. Right? How free will works, how it doesn't work, how all these things come into play. At the end of the day, God doesn't need us, and He created us. Why? Because He wants to do chesed. He cares about us. Just like He's merciful, you be merciful. Just like He does chesed, you do chesed. He did the biggest chesed by creating us. That's caring for another person, caring for humankind. I was by the Kotel. I had the zechut this week to be by the Kotel. I overheard a young boy, probably 10, 11-year-old, and he's telling his father, he asked his father, he says, Dad, is it possible that I was born 2 times? And the father says, sure. There's something called reincarnation, Gilgul. And sometimes when you don't accomplish what you did in the first life, and you got to come back in the second life. He says, could I have been born Christian the first time? And the father said, no, once you're a Jew, you're always a Jew. He said, okay, thank God. He said, I'm so happy to hear that. I was nervous. But that person understood that he's a Jew. God created, again, there's 7 billion people in the world, and God made sure that out of the 14.5 million, you are the Jew. That's called caring for another person, making sure that you're the ones. And we see this also when I was there, Motzei Shabbat. You have hundreds of people by the Kotel, Motzei Shabbat. And the buses come to pick up everyone and bring them home. Nobody has money. It's Shabbat. What are they coming for? You can't pay. It's pro bono. It's a freebie, right? There's an honor system. You should come back and pay. A lot of people don't pay, and they're okay with it. They tell you should pay, but you know, if you forget, we're mochel. That's called caring. That's chesed. That's helping out people that you don't know. It's a beautiful thing. They go and they take buses, dozens of buses to pick people up for no reason. Amazing. But that's what it is about having midot tovot, that caring for people. I always had a question, a very interesting question. If you look, there are 613 mitzvot in the Torah, many mitzvot that we have to do. Right? Thousands rabbinically, 613 mitzvot, we all know. And if you look, you'll never find any midot or most midot being part of those mitzvot. There's no halacha that says you're not allowed to be angry. No such thing. There's no halachot talking about midot tovot. And I always wondered, why is that? Why do we have, you have to eat kosher, but there's no such thing, you're not allowed to be angry? Why isn't that part of it? That's the most important. And I found in Sha'arei Kiddusha from Rav Chaim Vital, and Rabbeinu Ovadia Bar Tenura brings it down in the Hakdama, the introduction, Pirkei Avot. And they say the reason why these aren't the mitzvot is because they're more important than the mitzvot. Having midot tovot are more important than the halachot. Being a good person, derech eretz, caring about people are more important. That's why it's in a different plateau, a different atmosphere. We can't put it in the Torah as one of the mitzvot. They're too important to be part of it. But if you have to deal with one of them, you deal with your midot. You become perfect. You perfect yourself. Rav Yisrael Salanter had a student, and this student was walking down the street, and someone comes over to him and says, if you stop dealing with all the midot tovot, you would be a big gaon. You would be a great man. Great man. And he felt bad. And he goes to his Rebbe, he says, maybe I should stop learning Musar a little bit, stop working on midot. Maybe I should really start learning more Gemara, Halacha, so I can become a Gadol Ador. And Rav Yisrael Salanter tells him something amazing. He said, if you have a massive challah, you have a huge challah, like the Sheva Berachot challah, and it's broken off a little piece, or you have a small one that's whole, Which one can you use for Shabbat? Which one can you use lechem mishneh? You use the small one. He said, better be small and perfect than big and broken. It's more important. Be perfect. Work on your midot. Care for another Jew. On Motzei Shabbat, one Motzei Shabbat, in the Skver Beis Medrash, the Beit Midrash of Skver, everyone looked the same. They were all wearing their shtreimels, and there was one person there with khaki pants and a leather kippah. And he walks in, he's waiting online for hours to go to the Rebbe to get a blessing. And he goes into the Rebbe, and the Rebbe says, what do you need a blessing for? He says, I need a blessing for a boy, Yerachmiel ben Bela. The Rebbe says, Yerachmiel ben Bela, he should have a refuah shelema. The man walks out, and the Gabbai of the Rebbe starts chasing him. And he said, what do you know about Yerachmiel ben Bela? He said, the truth is, I work in Camp Hask. I work in Camp Hask. And one of my boys over there, he's very sick, and it's his birthday today. Now this boy, I can't get him a bat because he can't really run. I can't get him any toys or anything like that. The best thing I could get is a blessing from his Rebbe. I know he's a Skver Chassid, a Skver Chassid, so I'm going to get a beracha from his Rebbe. So the man starts to cry. And he said, why are you crying? He said, because Yerachmiel ben Bela is my son. And now I see that you can care about someone so much that you would go out of your way, wait for hours on a line to get a blessing, and it's not for your kid, it's for someone else's kid, and this is my kid. It shows how much a person could care for another Jew. Okay, there's more to say, but we're going to stop here so we can get to the halacha and have the feast of Achashverosh. Okay, this is going to be hopefully for a different class, but we're going to start it, we're going to do a little bit of it now because it has to do with Purim. Mishenichnas Adar marbib mesimcha. When Adar comes, we have a boost in simcha, in happiness. Now just a side point, besimcha and umachshava are the same letters. Stam, it's coming to tell you that if you want to have real happiness, it's b'machshava, it's in your mind. Happiness is in a state of mind. We already know that because that's the same letters, simcha and machshava. Amazing. So you want to be happy, just be happy through yourself. You don't need outside things making you happy. It comes from inside of you.
Any tips how we train our brain for that?
I mean, we could work on emunah. We'll a different class. Okay, now the first thing to know is Ta'anit Esther. We have the Ta'anit called Ta'anit Esther that we all have an obligation to fast. Now I'm reading this paragraph from Rabbi Ovadia, who writes that pregnant woman or nursing woman, they have no obligation to fast. Now it's good to know. One week we'll go through every fast to see the differences of what women have to do, what they don't have to do. In this fast, it's the most lenient of all fasts, Ta'anit Esther. Most lenient, most mekel of all fasts. So a woman who is pregnant and nursing, he writes over here, she doesn't have to fast at all. Now, when is a woman considered pregnant? After 3 months of being pregnant, that's when she's considered pregnant. If she's not feeling well or she's throwing up or anything like that, she doesn't have to fast then either.
So that means that if she's 2 months pregnant, she has to fast.
Right.
But if she's not feeling very
Unless she's got morning sickness.
The same thing which applies to a woman, lo aleinu, who has a miscarriage as well. Within the 30 days of the miscarriage, she doesn't have to fast as well. And A person who's just not feeling well. She's not feeling well. She has to lay down. She has a massive headache. She has a migraine. She has no obligation to fast either.
Not pregnant.
Not pregnant. Correct. A person who is older and it's hard for them to fast, there's no problem. They don't have to push themselves like the other fasts.
So I have a question. So why a woman pregnant up to 3 months have to fast? She obviously doesn't feel well, throwing up.
No, you don't have to fast.
So that's what he writes. If she's throwing up and she's not feeling well, then even before the 3 months. But a woman, technically, there's different halachot regarding 3 months or not. For example, let's say a woman who, a woman has to do checks for nidah, right? Throughout her life, she has to do these checks when she's in nidah to see if she's menstruating or not menstruating. Even when she's pregnant, before the 3 month gap, those 3 months, she still has to do these checks. There's different dinim. The halachot change from after 3 months to before. But if she is throwing up and all that, then she wouldn't have to as well.
But I have a question.
Yeah.
How you can say that it's, כאילו, I can say in Hebrew and you will say in English?
Yeah.
איך אפשר לעשות כל כך הרבה הקלות לצום גדליה? למה תענית אסתר פחות חשוב מצומות אחרים? בסוף זה חלק מעם ישראל, זה גם חלק ממשהו שלנו.
A very good question. So she wants to know what's the reason why this is more mekel than all other fasts. The reason why is because of minhag. This was a minhag that was set up by Esther Hamalka, really, that we keep to every year, but it wasn't like the other ta'aniyot. This was just a minhag that we kept to. That's why it's more mekel. That's why even, and this happened with my wife and I, even when this is Rabbi Ovadia holds us, some don't, even when a woman gets married, within the first 7 days, which is the Sheva Berachot, Rabbi Ovadia holds also you don't have to, because it's considered a simcha, and since this is such a lenient fast, they don't have to fast.
What if you start, what if you start a fast, like, and then you get on an airplane and like go to Israel and then like the time changes, do you have to still fast like for 1 year?
Very good question. Sometimes it's so difficult. Sometimes they tell you to
Repeat
even
the question. What's the question?
if a woman, if a person goes to a different place and now she's at a different hour, it goes by the place that you're
on the
going
airplane?
So
Yeah.
if you started your fast here, but then you get to Israel or whatever, and it's over, you can just eat.
Technically, yeah, it'll be
What if
good.
it's the
It
opposite?
applies very much also to nidah. When a woman, what day is it? Because now it's a different day. So does she go to the mikveh? Does she not? Does she do a check? Does she not? So yeah, but that's what we hold.
We're starving because we didn't know like when it was supposed to end, and we just ended up waiting extra, like
wow.
just thinking.
But he specifically writes, he actually writes on the bottom, he says a lot of women in particular think that this is a very lenient fast and they shouldn't fast at all. But this isn't true. It's a fast that we took upon ourselves and it should be done. And if you don't have any of these other issues, whether pregnancy or nursing or not feeling well, he writes, "Yitzchok atzmo v'yit'aneh." You should push yourself to make sure that you do fast during this fast. Now, the next thing on the list is the Megillah. Now we all know there's a mitzvah, l'kro Megillah, to hear the Megillah. This is for men and women. Women are obligated in this just as much as men. Why? Even though it's a mitzvah asher shazman gerama, even though it's a time-bound mitzvah, which women aren't usually obligated in, this one they are obligated in because they were also part of the nest. They were part of this miracle. They were going to be killed just like everyone else, so they have to make sure to hear it. Now, you're not allowed to eat until you hear the Megillah. That's the halacha. So what happens if a man goes to hear the Megillah and the woman has to stay home with the kids until he comes back? So she's going to be fasting for much longer. It's very difficult. So the halacha is that she could eat, even without hearing the Megillah. She shouldn't have a meal, but she should eat fruit. She could eat bread less than a betzah, 2 ounces.
Enough to break the fast, sort of?
2 ounces. I'm sorry?
Enough to break the fast, sort of.
Yeah, or a cookie, or take a drink, have a tea, have a coffee. Any of those she can do. And even if she doesn't have to wait longer, but she feels like, or he feels like they need to eat something, there's no problem with doing that before the Megillah. Now, not eating applies also to the morning as well, where they can't eat before the Megillah. But again, if they're going to pray late because they have to do whatever they have to do, then they would be able to eat something small, just not to have a Seudah before. They bring down you should make a shomer, or even some say an alarm, to make sure that you do hear the Megillah later if you're going to eat, so you shouldn't forget about it.
Is that the same thing for Sephardi as for Ashkenazi?
Yeah, same thing. Now we all know that you have to hear every word. If you miss one word, it's an issue and you have to hear it all again. Which is an issue, why? Because a lot of times we know by the kids where they all bang by Haman and then you don't hear the next word. So make sure at that time when they say Haman, that's the time that you should read in the Chumash with the Baal Koreh so that you don't miss those few words after. Now a big mitzvah on this Yom Tov is matanot le'evyonim, giving gifts to the poor. Both men and women are obligated in this. A woman should give money from her own money and not her husband's money because it's her own mitzvah. She has to give two amounts of money to two different evyonim, to two different poor people. It's someone who's really poor, right? Not a yeshiva, not something like that. A poor person, so that they can have food for the holiday. You have to give 2 meals, or the amount of 2 meals. So that's roughly nowadays, they say, if you go to the store, you can buy 2 slices and a drink for $5-6. So you're obligated to give $6 or $5 to 2 different poor people. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein brings down that you can give a coffee and a Danish, which would be less than that, so it's just a couple of dollars. Anything after that, let's say you want to give a lot of money, that you could give from ma'asir. You could give it from your 1/10 that you're mechuyav to give, or it's a minhag, whatever it is, not for now. But everything after those 2 times, those 2 $5, you could give from whatever you want. But before that, you have to give from $5 from free money. Yeah.
So if you want to donate, say, to the IDF, they have a thing that you can donate like X amount of money, 3 different brackets of money for the IDF to get them a mishloach manot. That doesn't count because
No. That's mishloach manot. Yeah, you could give that. I'm talking about matanot. I'm talking about giving to the poor people.
that's what I'm saying.
The
But
Hebrew
some of those
phrase,
people
David,
don't.
matanot le'evyonim.
They don't have. I don't know if they're really poor. I have no idea. Do they get money from their parents? Do they not? Does the army give them money? You give it to a poor person. Give it to me. I'll give it out for you. I'll give it to my wife. So, again, you give 2 amounts to 2 people. They say also even your kids that are above the age of chinuch, they should have their own money. So you give it to them as a gift so that they can do this mitzvah.
Repeat that this is not mishloach manot. This is something different.
This is not mishloach manot. This is different than mishloach manot. This is matanot le'evyonim. It's giving to the poor people.
So if you don't know any poor people, you give to the rabbi to give in your behalf?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the famous thing everyone brings down, it's from a Rambam, that giving matanot le'evyonim is more important than the mishloach manot and the seudah. More than the meal, and giving mishloach manot is giving to the poor people. So if you have to give more, you should give towards that as opposed to the other items. Now, what happens if a person doesn't have any cash? They only have a check. Are you allowed to give a check to someone? So the rabbis bring down that if they can cash the check that day, or they can give it to someone else that can give them money, or they can give it to the grocery store, then that's okay. But if it's post-dated and they can't use it, then you do not get the mitzvah for that day. Right? They get very involved in if you have a credit card. So if you have a credit card and you're going and you're buying something for someone else on this credit card, but you didn't pay the credit card yet. So it's not actually yours because you still own it. Not for now. Just use a check that can work or use cash. It's only $10, so it shouldn't be so difficult.
So let's say like a rabbi knows an organization or whatever in Israel that gives money to very poor people, and you give the cash to the rabbi that day, but how does the rabbi get it to Israel that day?
Right, so they do that all the time, and I also do that with a rabbi there. they give it from their own money on their behalf for you, and then whenever they get the money, they get the money.
But isn't that like borrowing from the credit card because you're borrowing from the rabbi?
No, because he was zochein it for you. He acquired that money for you, and that means that this is all yours, and now he's going to get that money. The credit card is a whole different thing. They're not acquiring anything. You just owe them money that you didn't pay yet.
So you can't give like to Od Yosef Chai or something beforehand. You have to give it on that day.
On the day. So there is a question if you give it before and then they give it on that day, which would be good in that case. I don't know if they do. I don't know how Od Yosef Chai
But you
works.
have the time difference, but at the same time, it's about the intention, isn't it?
No. You have to give it on the day.
Right.
The intention is beautiful, but the mitzvah of
I'm
Purim...
following up on what Sharon said.
Okay.
I give it to you. You are in Israel. I give it to you, and you're in Israel. But there's a time difference.
Oh, you're saying if it's for them and not for you. Yeah, it works.
Because there's
Yeah.
a time difference to be considered.
7 hours, right? If it's not for you
So
yet,
I
but it
give
is for them,
I give
it still
to you,
works.
And to me, it's going
Very
to
good
be
question.
that day.
Right.
But to you, it's whatever, backwards, forwards.
Got it. It would
upside
work.
down, whatever. So that's
Yeah.
my question.
It would work, yeah.
Okay.
Even though it's a different time, because it's on the day that for them. Now, there is a halacha, kol poshet yad. Whoever puts out their hand to get money, you have to give them. They bring down even goyim, right? Maybe because of eva, because they're going to hate you. And it does happen in Lakewood. There would be Russians who weren't Jewish who would come, and they know that all the Jews give money on this day, and they would go and take money. So you'd have to give them that because maybe they would start hating you. But whoever it is that comes to you, you don't have to look into them. You just give them something. It doesn't mean you have to give them real money. Give them a nickel, a dime, a quarter. Just give them something that they have. Yes.
I have a question. So you said before that if I didn't pay for the credit card yet, the mitzvah doesn't count. So it does. Is that also count on mishloach manot? Things that I buy for the mishloach manot? I use my credit card to pay for it, but the credit card bill doesn't come out until next
No,
month.
so it wouldn't apply to that. But even in that, there is a dispute, and there is what to rely on, even by the credit card, because technically it's considered yours before, even though you have to pay it back. But I was just saying it's better not to. It's better to use something else as opposed to that, because there are some rabbis that don't like it.
I see.
Yeah, but if you have to, then for sure do that.
If I do half cash,
But then
You're
they
okay.
could put $10, $100 towards their credit card bill before. No problem.
What do you mean?
Pay your credit card $100 early.
All right. Yeah, that's true. Now, as we said, kol poshet yad. Whoever puts out their hand, you should give them. There's
What
a.
if you don't have let's say you go to the store, sometimes people.
Oh, if you don't have, you don't have.
anything.
Yeah, you're not going to give them like your wig, you know. You don't have anything, you just leave it like that, you know. But if you have something, then you give it to them. Now, there's a Hasidic vart that they bring down. They say that the same thing applies to God. That if you come to Him with prayers, and there is a certain prayer, we actually say it. The Sfaradim say it in the middle of Beit Yaakov, that it says that whoever says this will be answered on that day. Whoever comes to God, kol poshet yad. Whoever comes to God with this prayer, whoever comes to Him saying, God, I need you for whatever it is, a shidduch, for parnasah, for a child, God will also not close His hand to you. If you don't close your hands to others, He's not going to close His hand to you. Now, the next thing on the agenda is mishloach manot. Now, there is a mitzvah to give mishloach manot ish l're'eu, from a man to his friend. The same thing applies to a woman. A woman has a mitzvah, and it should come from her own mishloach manot, not from her husband, to give to her friend. But a woman has a mitzvah to give mishloach manot. The two reasons why, as we said, for the manot levi and the others, either so they should have a seudah, they should have food for the meal, or it brings about love between man and his friend. Now, a big misconception, a big problem, I get this question many times every year. Am I allowed to give, what do I have to give? Can I give two things that are the same beracha, or do they have to be two different berachot?
Inside the mishloach.
Yeah, the mishloach manot. So, even as I'm saying this, some people are saying the wrong thing. You do not have to give two different berachot. It could be the same beracha. Not only that, it could be from the same. It has to be two different items. The halacha is it has to be two different items a bakbuk, a drink, works as well. A drink and a food, even if they're both shahakol, a piece of chicken and a can of soda would work. They actually bring down that it has to be two different minim, which means two different items. But if it's a different type of chicken, you have a thigh and you have a leg, that would work as well. Or you have a schnitzel and a grilled chicken, that would also work. It does not have to be two different berachot, just two different items or two different cuts. The real mitzvah is to give something chashuv, something important to the next person, right? They bring down actually, if it's a rich person, you should give something that's enough for his kavod, or if it's a person who's an honorable person, you should give something better for him also, but it should be something chashuv. Now what do? We put in Laffy Taffies and cans of soda and potato chips. So the best thing to do is to, since it's a mitzvah, excuse me, I should have said this in the beginning, the mitzvah is only to give to one person. You just have to give one person. Anything after that is a beautiful thing, but the real mitzvah is to one person. And what should he do? You should give one person something chashuv. That one person, you should give something that's worthy, that's special, that's important. They bring down something like meat, something that the person would be like, wow, this is a beautiful item that I'm getting. Now, since it says mishloach manot, mishloach comes from the word shliach, messenger. So some rabbis bring down, I think it's a Binyan Sion, if I remember correctly, that it should be sent through a messenger to the next person. Now, we don't paskin like that, but it is something to be concerned about. So I make sure to take always one and give it to someone else to give to someone else. So I'll have someone give to someone else, because mishloach manot, to be yotzeh, these to fulfill the obligation for these different rabbis who hold that it has to be mamash mishaleach, to give it over.
So you would like give it to your kid to give to somebody?
Yeah, well, not my kid, because that could be a different issue, but I could give it to my wife. I always take one, whoever it is. I would give to someone else and be like, okay, give it to him on my behalf. Just to get that mitzvah, is always nice to be yotzeh. Huh?
Why the kids doesn't count?
The kid could be a different issue, that first of all, he can't be a shliach, he can't be a messenger. And also, we don't know if he did the shlichut. We don't know if he did the messenger. Yeah, then it would work, yes. Since one of the reasons why is to bring about love, it should not be done anonymously, right? So don't be one of those guys who just goes and gives it to the other person without a name on it. It's bringing about love from one person to the next, so make sure they know who it's coming from. If you go to a person's house and the person is sleeping and you want to give him mishloach manot, and he might sleep until Purim is over, that'll be an issue of mishloach manot. Make sure the person gets up before, or make sure you give to other people, because if he's sleeping after the day is already done, you don't get that mitzvah of mishloach manot. And it happens very often when the man drinks too much and he gets drunk.
How much he's gonna sleep?
Wake him up. Wake him up, or give it to someone else. Make sure you give two, right? Usually we give a lot, so it's not really an issue. Preferably, it should not be given raw. You should not give raw food. It should be something cooked. Even though there are those that say, but you can always cook it, but mishloach manot shouldn't be something raw.
What if it's a salad?
That's okay, because you can eat it right away. I'm talking about
like something raw that you can't eat.
Right.
It's raw form.
Right, but salad would work. Right, salad could be not an issue, but a different halacha. Interesting, if you have something like a bareka that has bread on the outside, or pastry dough and the inside has chicken, or a salad that has different things inside, is it considered one min? Is it considered mishloach manot that you gave two things, or is it considered one? So it has to be two different items inside that you would be able to make in that, I guess, two different berachot, or eat it separately, so that you could get that mitzvah of mishloach manot.
So does the dressing count as another item?
No, because you don't make a berachah on the dressing. But that's a very good one.
But like if you have tchina, let's say.
No.
You
No, because you put the tahina on the salad, so that's one berachah. You just make a hadama on it, and you don't make a shakol.
I thought you had to give 3 items, not 2.
But 3 is nice.
Hey, what if you do like carrots and dip?
No, because you're only making berachah on the carrots and not on the dip. So it's considered one thing. What?
העיקר כאילו והטפל. כאילו העיקר והטפל, כן.
Yeah, you can't have it. Yeah. One other thing interesting to know, I believe it's a Ben Ish Chai. He brings down that you should give one after the other as opposed to one basket. He says Mishloach Manot, you should give it in two different hands or one after the other. We don't go like that. But if you're giving so many, why not be Yotzei this rabbi also who says that you should give it one after the other?
Well, what if you're giving bread and something? Bread and a dip.
Good question.
Bread and a salad. Then that's not
No,
right.
well, you can eat the salad by itself and then
Okay,
without
well,
the
let's
bread.
say bread and a dip.
No one's drinking salad dressing, I don't think. People drink salad dressing. Okay, if they do, then they do.
No, what if you do like bread and tahini, where you could eat it plain, or hummus, you could eat it plain.
I don't think anyone. Okay, if they do, if people eat hummus plain, then maybe. I don't know if people do.
Okay, but what if you're doing bread and an item though? Bread, because you're only making one berachah. Right, but you're only making
It's
one
true,
berachah to wash.
but here you wouldn't be able. Right, it's not about two berachot, but here it's not really considered a food itself. Like she's saying, you kind of a tafel that it's always going. It's part of the next thing. It's like to your friend. This doesn't take away that a father could give to his son or a rabbi could give to his student, even though they're not actually considered friends. That would also be involved in this halacha. Now, an interesting question. Let's say I keep Chalav Yisrael and someone gives me Chalav Stam. Does he get the mitzvah? I keep Yashan and this person doesn't keep Yashan and he gives me something not Yashan. Or I'm a vegetarian and they give me meat. Or I'm a diabetic. I'm a diabetic and the person just gives me a bag of sugar. Right? Does this person get the mitzvah? Or would I get the mitzvah of giving sweets to a person who's a diabetic?
No.
So,
Can you
okay.
gift?
What if you don't know?
Very good. So they do bring down, the rabbis bring down that you're allowed to give meat to a vegetarian or sugar to a diabetic or everything like that, even though Rabbi Greenblatt says not. You're allowed to. Why? Because he can give it to someone else and that would bring about love. Because he's happy that now he can at least give it to someone else. Okay, the next thing on the list is Seudat Purim. There is a mitzvah to eat a Seudat Purim, to eat the Purim meal. Ideally, it should start before Shekiyah. It should start before Shekiyah, even a nice amount before Shekiyah. Even if it ends after Shekiyah, you could still say Ala Nisim in Birkat HaMazon, but it should be done when it's still day. Regarding drinking, so this is more of a man's, these halachot are more for men, because women have no obligation to drink or to get drunk whatsoever. It's actually frowned upon for a woman to get drunk, so they don't have to do that.
Happy.
You're happy always. You don't need wine to make you. Look at you. You're always happy. What are you talking about? The only thing I said asu was drinking.
Ah, okay. So what mutar?
Drink in your house by yourself.
By myself?
Yeah, with your husband, whatever you want to do.
With my girls.
Yes, that's fun.
But not when other men is around.
Right. Right.
And if we are having Lela Seder Seuda, and there is 4 kushiyot that we need to drink, then what?
Drink grape juice.
What if you have diabetes and you can't drink green juice?
That's usually family also. It could be different. It's talking about a woman in general when she gets drunk. Listen, I didn't come. I'm from Brooklyn. My wife's from Deal, and we lived in Lakewood. And it was a major eye opener when I was here last year for Purim. When the men actually, none of them were drunk. They just get drunk on Shabbat by the Kiddush thing on Purim. They're like, no, what? That's for crazy people to get drunk. And all the women were just plastered on the floor. It was.
Where was this party?
Are
they doing it again?
The truth is, I already told people not to go there.
The men were drivers.
Uber.
So it seems like the minhag in Hollywood is to do it, but I don't go for it. So let's not do it this
What
way.
if the woman drink but still, active?
You want to have a little bit to be happy, that's no problem. But to get drunk, that's
Not to get drunk.
Get lit.
Yeah, you know when the man's on the floor and he's saying like that, not like that.
Like no drool, you know. Still see
Nothing you don't want to remember. Nothing you can't remember or don't want to remember.
Okay, now there's an interesting halacha that they bring down. They say Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, and Esther Hamalka. They all did not eat food in the king's palace. All these people were in the king's palace, either Nebuchadnezzar or Achashverosh, and they did not eat any food because it wasn't kosher. What did they eat? They ate seeds. They ate sunflower seeds and pumpkin seeds and Pitzuchem Mashiach. They ate all the seeds in the world, and it was a miracle. They looked fine. Nothing happened. They were actually stronger. And since they did that, since Esther Hamalka and these Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah did that, there's a minhag to eat seeds on Purim, commemorating that they did, which is a nice thing to do. Now there is one more halacha that we're going to speak about, and that is working on Purim. Now, another thing that an eye opener over here, everything started in Hollywood very, very late. And again, in Brooklyn and Deal and Lakewood, nobody worked on those days. We started drinking early in the morning. Mishloach manot, we did the whole thing. We prayed normally. The traffic was crazy, so it took time to get. People started. We have our Purim Seudah early in the morning. We started our Purim Seudah. Different Al Pi Kabbalah, you should have it in the morning. So everything started earlier. Over here, everything started later, much, much later, right before Shekiah, because everyone went to work. So the halacha is that they bring down that a person who works on Purim will not see any beracha from that work. There will be no beracha, no blessing from that work. So it's better not to do it because it's just doing it for no reason. Now, what's considered work? Working is actually working, like on Chol HaMoed. It's talking about sewing or even laundering. Some say it's okay because it's very easy now. Or all these different things that you do for work. Pragmatia, which means things that you do in business, if buying and selling. If you're going to lose money out of it, then it could be done. If not, then you should refrain from doing it. So any work shouldn't be done on Purim. That's already the minhag. Everyone goes with it already. If you have the whole day, not at night, just in the day. At night's good. If there's a possibility not to do it, unless you're a doctor or things like that where you have to. But if not, it shouldn't be done. If you do it on purpose, you won't see any beracha from it. That's what the Chazal bring down. And that's only talking about regular work. Anything that you're going to lose money from, or you're going to lose your job, God forbid, or anything like that, it's then you'll be able to do it.
It's so hard when you work in public world. You have to take off 7 days right away for the Hagim. You can't just, and all the other Hagim, you just can't take off.
Yes, great point. So that's what they bring down by Chol HaMoed. They say davar aved, something that if you're going to lose money, you don't have to work.
I can take a sick day, but you can't just keep taking off.
It's true. So they bring down that the biggest loss of money ever is losing your job. So just to take off regularly, and your boss is going to be angry at you, they say that's considered a loss, and you're allowed to work on that day, even on Chol HaMoed. So the same thing with Purim, of course, which is Chol HaMoed is much more stringent than that. But again, it's not a halacha, it's not asur. Just to say, you won't see any beracha from it because the minhag is not to do it. I want to just end off what we were talking about in the beginning. Just one more thing, and that is, okay, Rav Shlomo Lawrence. He went to the Chazon Ish. He was very instrumental in putting kids in yeshiva, kids that came from all countries. He would put them into school. Rav Shlomo Lawrence, he was one of the Chavrei Knesset. And he went to the Chazon Ish and he says, there's no more room, I don't have the capacity, I'm not able to do it. And the Chazon Ish said, okay, I get it, you can't take in many. Could you take in 10? Could you take in 5? Could you take in 1? Do something. He says, show that you care, show that you have the ability, even if you can't do as much as you think you could do, even though you can't do everything that there is to do something, and even that one person, with that one person, you can change the world, and make sure you try. I heard a beautiful story, it's probably a parable, from a rabbi. He said that there was a major tidal wave, and on the beach shores, there were millions and millions of starfish all over the shore. And there was this little girl, a 10-year-old girl, she was picking each one up and she was throwing it in. And a man comes over and says, "You silly girl, what are you doing? You know how many there are on the shores? There's millions and millions. You can't make a difference." And she says, while she's picking one up, and she says, and she throws it in, she says, "But for that one, I made all the difference." Right? Each person, caring for each person. It doesn't have to be for everyone, but if you could get to one person, that's enough to make a difference in one person's life, to show that you care, to give that mishloach manot. There is one more interesting ma'amere chazal, and that is, we all know that whoever has an issue, they actually have it right now. There's a website for it. If someone has a problem, they find someone else who has the same issue as you, and you pray for each other. Why? Because the Gemara says, someone who prays for someone else, he gets answered first. He needs the same thing. He will get answered first. So some explain it means if someone prays for someone else, and you need him to be answered first. You want him to be answered first so much, you care about this other Jew that you need him to be answered, that's when God says, now I'm going to answer you. Because God says, if you care about a different person, then I care about you. Baruch Adonai Olam, Amen v'Amen.
Amen.